Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of cinema's most misunderstood chapters. And trust me, it's anything but silent.
Okay, so let's just jump right in. When I say the words silent film, what's the first image that pops into your head?
I'm guessing for a lot of you, it's, those flickering screens, right? The jerky, sped-up motion, the super over-the-top acting, and maybe a lone piano just kind of plinking away in the background. It feels almost ancient, like some kind of primitive artifact. Well, what if I told you that whole picture is pretty much wrong? The real story is so much more innovative, way more colorful, and believe it or not, a whole lot less silent than you'd ever imagine. All right, let's tackle the biggest myth right out of the gate, the whole idea that these films were ever actually silent. You see, the term silent film is what you'd call a retronym. It's a name we only came up with after the talkies showed up. Before that, they were just movies. And silence? Yeah, that was never the point. Seriously, going to the movies back then was this full-on audio experience. Your small-town theater probably had a pianist making stuff up as they went along. But a big city movie palace, we're talking a full orchestra with a custom-written score. Music was absolutely crucial to setting the scene. And then you had these absolute beasts like the Mighty Wurlitzer. I mean, look at this list. This thing wasn't just for music. It was a one-stop shop for sound effects. It could literally make the sound of a train whistle, horses' hooves, even thunder. It was the live Foley artist of its day. Okay, so that brings us to myth number 2. The whole idea that these movies were, primitive. Honestly, that couldn't be further from the truth. This was a time of just incredible artistic discovery. Look, in the very beginning, the acting was pretty theatrical. That makes sense, right? A lot of the actors came from the stage. But filmmakers and stars like the amazing Lillian Gish, they figured out really fast that the camera is a totally different beast. It's intimate. You don't need to play to the back row anymore. You can be subtle, natural.
Okay, but what about that super fast jerky motion? That's what we all think of, right? Were people just moving around like that back then?
Nope, not at all. That's actually a problem we created. See, back then there was no standard film speed. The camera operator literally hand cranked the film. So when we take those movies and play them back at our modern standard, 24 frames per second, everything looks all sped up and weird. If you play them at the speed they were actually shot at, they look completely natural. So far from being primitive, this era literally invented the visual language of movies. The close-up, the long shot, panning, editing for continuity, all these things that filmmakers take for granted today, they were all pioneered right here. This is the bedrock of modern cinema. And that's a perfect lead-in to the next myth we have to bust, the idea that silent films were just black and white.
Okay, get ready for this, because it's a shocker. By the early 1920s, a whopping 80% of movies had color in them in some way. Think about that. Color was actually way more common back then than it was for the first few decades of sound films. So how on earth did they do it? Well, the most popular way was tinting. They literally dipped the whole film strip into a dye. It was like a color code. So a yellow or amber tint like this, that was the signal for a daytime scene.
And if you saw blue, you knew it was nighttime. It's a really simple, really elegant solution, right? You can still see everything perfectly, but you instantly get that it's dark outside. And red? Well, you can probably guess. Red was for drama, fire, a big battle scene, or just pure, raw passion. It's just an amazing way to telegraph emotion without a single word. So, if everything was so innovative and creative, what happened? How did this whole incredible art form just disappear? Well, the answer came with the arrival of sound. Yup, the talkies, as everyone called them, showed up in 1927, and they were a sensation. And in what felt like the blink of an eye, less than a decade, the entire silent film industry was just gone, replaced by movies with dialogue. But that transition came at a huge, huge price. And this, to me, is the most tragic part of the whole story. We think that about 3/4, 75% of all American silent films are just lost forever. And it's not like they just faded away gracefully. The reasons are actually pretty brutal. The film stock they used, nitrate, was incredibly flammable, and it just chemically disintegrated over time. It literally turned to dust. On top of that, studios saw the old films as worthless, so they just destroyed them to make space. And then there were the vault fires, just catastrophic fires that wiped out countless movies. It's heartbreaking. But here's the thing. Even with so much of it gone, the echoes of the silent era are everywhere you look today. Think about it. The basic grammar of how you tell a story with a camera, how you build suspense, how you make an audience feel something without anyone saying a word. All of that was figured out by these pioneers. By mastering the art of visual storytelling, they created a universal language, one that didn't need translation, and one that, even 100 years later, still speaks to all of us.